for a change?
I am talking to you.
Then get ready to explore the quantum possibilities. It's time to transform that outdated paradigm into something universal and new. Time to uncover the truth hidden beneath the veil of lies. A time to think outside the box as we link to a higher consciousness. Welcome to the awakening. And now the hosts of Broadcast Team Alpha, Nori Love and Augie Nost.
Well, hello, magnificent moon meanderers. Say that again, meanderers. How are you guys? It's Tuesday once again, and we're so happy to be here with you. We're so happy to have our guest, and I know some of you are interested in the moon. I mean, we actually have a friend who has been taken off the guest list for the moon, but I won't mention any names. Anyway, we're going to have a great conversation tonight. But once again, I just like to lead with some gratitude and thank you for being here. Thank you for your support. Thank you for the great comments in the chat room, and thank you for the fun. So without any further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Augie, who's going to tell us about our guest.
Yes, here we are again with a wonderful show, and this is going to be so much fun. We are going to step out of the box, trample all over it, and then burn it, so there's no chance of ever to crawl back in the box and hide from the real truth and evidence of what is out there. We have Constance Victoria Briggs with us. She is a metaphysical, spiritual, and cosmic researcher and a writer. She is on the radio circuit and being interviewed everywhere about her books, and she has written 4 books. Let me mention that today, though, we will talk mostly about one of them, of her book, Encyclopedia of Moon Mysteries. But she has also written Encyclopedia of Unseen Worlds, Encyclopedia of Angels, Encyclopedia of God. Oh boy, I see 3 other shows hidden in here. Constance loved talking about the paranormal, extraterrestrials, life after death, near-death experiences, and she is hot on the trail of investigating the mysteries of the universe and how it interacts and connects to humanity. So welcome to the show, Constance.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
So happy to have you. Really exciting. And there's so many places to go to start with, but I would just like to ask a personal question so we get to know you. How did this begin for you? How did you end up where you are today with, this very expansive work that you do?
Right. Well, since I was a very young person, I was interested in spirituality. I sort of put myself on a path early in life to try to understand, like most of us, why we're here, and what's this all about. Then I started having some interesting personal experiences. I've seen a guide. I've seen I've had some paranormal activity that I was on a path to try to understand. I've had communication from the other side. And along the way, I just, somewhere along the way, I understood that we're not alone in the universe. I had some experience. I believe that my guides are in touch with me. So I believe that they're, constantly shooting me little bits of information that sets me on all of these different ideas and feed me, I feel like they're giving me, like I said, information. Anyway, so I had personal experiences, and eventually they led me to the moon.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think most entities or beings or people out there that is so advanced that they travel through space. From the testimonies that we've seen from people, they are very telepathic. They can read or understand our thoughts and our mind, and we may get those from them too, but we may think that they are our own thoughts and then twist it around so that, oh, gee, that was a strange thought, but maybe it wasn't our thought at all. Could that be?
This is definitely true. I guess before we get into the moon, I'll tell you, I kind of have a funny story from my guides. I was writing, I have a book, the Encyclopedia of the Unseen World, and I was pitching this book to publishers, and the publishers were not biting. And I was just so frustrated. What's wrong? Why don't they like it? I thought they would like this. Was a good topic. So I kept getting all things spiritual, name it all things spiritual, like a little, someone speaking in my ear. And I got really frustrated. I said, well, it's not all things spiritual. And I went next door to my husband's office and I said, my guides are telling me to name the book All Things Spiritual. And he said, well, they're telling you need to change it. I can't even remember what it was originally. So I changed it, sent it, and I got 5 hits the next day.
Wow.
Even though they ended up changing the title anyway.
Oh, they did.
They changed it to Unseen World, but that All Things Spiritual got their attention. And but I haven't.
You love how that works.
I know it was great. But then when my son was younger, this is one of my favorite guide stories. I'll say it really quick. He was playing with a friend in my family room, and I heard him chatting, and my girlfriend, the mom of my son's playmate, was talking, and I kept getting, check the door. And I told her, excuse me, I have to check the door. I went to the front door and it was open and her 4-year-old was out.
No way.
Yeah, so my kid was playing and talking to himself, and we thought he was talking to his playmate. So that's one of my favorite stories. I mean, I have a lot more, but those are my 2 favorites.
So good. Yeah, so powerful because they're so important. So, yeah.
Well, let's go to the moon. The enigma of the moon has, people have been wondering what's up there, what it is for so long. And in fact, when you start looking into it a little bit, even just a little bit, you find out that, like several scientists have said, that there is actually more evidence to the fact that the moon is not or cannot be there than evidence for the fact that it is there.
Right.
Boy, that's strange.
Yes. Our moon is not some, dead rock in the sky that, it happened to be captured and all of this stuff. As you said, the scientists, don't know why it's there. They've come up with 5 theories. The most prevalent one is that a planet the size of Mars hit Earth, and the debris from Earth formed the moon. That's the most prevalent theory they have, the most popular one. But it has not been proven. In fact, most have discounted that. So they really don't know where the moon originated. I thought I'd share a couple of my favorite quotes with you, along those lines. So American science writer and biochemist Isaac Asimov, your audience may be familiar with him. He asked once, what in blazes is our moon doing way out there? It's too far out to be a true satellite of Earth. It's too big to have been captured by the Earth. The chances of such a capture having been effected and the moon then having taken up a nearly circular orbit about the Earth are too small to make such an eventuality credible. But then, if the moon is neither a true satellite of the Earth nor a captured one, what is it? I love that quote. And then the second one is by planetary scientist William Hartman, who wrote a book titled Origin of the Moon. And he said, neither the Apollo astronauts, the lunar vehicles, nor all the king's horses and all the king's men could assemble enough data to explain the circumstances of the moon's birth. So for me, I find those two quotes fascinating and interesting. One of the main reasons that I started, I just want to say, is that I came across a book. I don't know if you're familiar with it, Augie, but it's titled Our Mysterious Spaceship Moon by Don Wilson.
Yep, I got the book on the shelf.
Yeah, I adore that book, and some of these little quotes you can find in there anyway. I don't know where Don Wilson is. I thanked him in my book. I said, thank you, Don Wilson, wherever you are, because he really inspired me. He had some really thought-provoking ideas. But anyway, with all of the Apollo missions that went up, they still don't know for sure how the moon came to be where it is.
Yeah, and then there are Russian scientists that come out and say that it really shouldn't be there, but it looks to us as the moon is a foreign, I think they call it spacecraft that has been parked in orbit.
Right. So out of all of the theories of how the moon came to be where it is, my favorite is that one. It was a couple of Russian scientists who in the 70s took a look at the Apollo missions and the data that they brought back with them. And they concluded, by looking and seeing that the moon is possibly hollow. I would say it's hollow, by the way, but I'll say, possibly for argument's sake. That the moon is hollow because of the bombing that NASA did on the moon. You remember the famous line, "The moon rang like a bell." Well, the Apollo 11 mission, they launched that lunar rover into it and crashed it into the moon, and the moon reverberated for quite a while. So these two Russian scientists looked at that. They looked at the craters of the moon and how, no matter how large or small the craters are from the meteorites hitting, they're all the same depth. And that they found very weird. And they also looked at the makeup of the dust on the moon, which primarily consists of chromium, titanium, and zirconium. Now these three elements are very strong. They can protect against the effects of temperature and radiation and meteorite and bombardment. And these scientists said that if they were to design a spacecraft, these are the materials that they would use. So they concluded that the moon is a spaceship. They believed that it had engines inside. And actually, I'll read a quote to you from them as to what they said. And then, let me just read the quote. So in Sputnik magazine, the scientists were quoted as saying, "It is more likely that what we have here is a very ancient spaceship, the interior of which was filled with fuel for the engines, materials and appliances for repair work, navigation instruments, observation equipment, and all manner of machinery. In other words, everything necessary to enable it to serve as a Noah's Ark of intelligence, perhaps even as a home of a whole civilization, envisaging a prolonged, perhaps thousands of millions of years existence and long wanderings through space." So that's, that was their thought. And so they believed that the moon was created outside of our solar system somewhere by advanced beings and dragged across the universe and placed here.
Well, the Easter Bunny and Santa wasn't enough, but now you're telling me there's no man in the moon, so I'm going to have to go to therapy. My goodness.
No, it's not. There's not a man in the moon. There's apparently several men in the moon, probably. But you know what's really strange is that along those lines there is a Zulu Zulu legend. The Zulu people of Africa tells a story of the moon being hollow and home to a race of beings. The story basically says that there were two extraterrestrials that took the moon, which they referred to as an egg, hollowed it out, and this is long before we had any of this information. Okay, this is an ancient story, and they hollowed it out, and that these two extraterrestrial, they were brothers, stole it from a place, and they took the yolk out, and then they proceeded to move it across the universe to the Earth, and that's their explanation of how the moon came to be. And not only that, but they also said that when the moon was brought in, it caused chaos throughout the Earth, and some believe that maybe that chaos could have been the Great Flood. That's so prevalent throughout so many civilizations and cultures.
Mm-hmm. Wow, now that's interesting. Zulu. Wow. You really have to think about that.
Well, that's actually a reasonable thought, because if there was no moon, there wouldn't be any ebb and tide. There would be no differences in the height of the water around the world. When the moon was brought in, it started those ebb and tide and the water going up and down, and maybe in the beginning there was more of a shock for something that maybe it didn't quite end up in a circular orbit right away. Maybe it was closer, so it created more of a tsunami type activity, and there's a lot of things that could happen in the process of parking the moon in orbit.
Yes, and the theory is that the reason they brought the moon here was because they saw, of course, that the Earth was unstable, but it had a lot of potential for life and for thriving, and that if the Earth had something to maybe stabilize it, that it could be helped. So they brought this here. And, of course, we know that life is thriving. It's, we've got the 4 seasons. We have, as you said, the tides and the ebb and the flow. And it's a great place to be. And, of course, we're not so sure what it would be like without a moon. We've all heard that you can't have the Earth without a moon, but I at least found one scientist that said, yeah, life could be. It would be difficult. It would be different. The moon would be moving. The Earth would be moving around, but, it could happen. So the idea is that they wanted to sustain the Earth, and that's why they dragged this across the sky and put it here. That's the theory.
That visual is really interesting, right? Dragging it across the sky. Yeah.
Well, dragging it. So I read someone's who, I forget the person's name, but they said, it could have been placed on the tail of a meteorite. Actually, I think that was one of the contactees, and I can't remember which one. There have been a number of contactees that have had visitations from ETs and said that they went on trips to the moon. And one of them was told that was how it came. And that's dragging, right? It's still on the tail of.
Exactly. Really interesting. And what's your favorite theory? I won't ask you what you believe. I'll just ask you, what's your favorite theory?
So I really do enjoy the spaceship moon theory, because there's so much more to it. Pardon me, so much more to that theory than just it being a hollowed out ship. That there are other aspects to this. Some believe, because we're seeing a lot of movement, and I hope we get into it. A lot of movement on the planet. Outwardly, they're thought that, we see, as we'll talk about, lights and structures, but also there is a belief that there may be people actually existing inside the planet. I like the idea of, the whole Noah's Ark thing. There's the theory that maybe it was a ship because people were trying to escape their planet and be saved, and it was placed here. Then, of course, we have the idea that there are ETs there that have been there all along, that are watching us and that have been trying to help us, and that did help us in the beginning. I really like the idea of, us having friends out there.
Yes, me too.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, though, that there is a lot of abductees that was invited to the moon, and they even left the ship on the moon and walked and was inside buildings. So there's too many of these stories. I think there's got to be something to it.
Yeah, I haven't found that much information as and I'm glad I didn't, on abductees. There was one lady who made some claims, but I'm just not sure enough about that story to go into the details. Mm-hmm. Excuse me, but I'm more familiar with the contactees, and I like their stories, of things that they have seen up there. They say they've seen vegetation. One of them talked about going on a kind of a ride around to tour the moon. He talked about there being bases inside of the moon, and he saw ships coming and landing in a port inside of the moon.
Mm. Well,
I think on that video documentary that I sent you, I think there is a picture of a hole that goes in through the surface into the interior of the moon. So we know there is something inside. We wonder, where do that hole go to?
Right. And, they have seen things like one of the astronauts noticed some sort of smoke or some kind of fumes. He didn't know what it was, emanating from the surface of the moon. And there have been tons of tales about domes up there appearing and disappearing. And so some are thinking that maybe, there is a whole area down there for them to be able to take in air, and that we're seeing energy and lights in those domes. We just don't know. But there are many, many caverns up there, and anything or anyone, if you believe in extraterrestrials, could. I mean, we can stretch our imaginations. We're not going to say for sure something's there, but it's fun to, kind of, look at this and say, what in the world? Is there someone there?
Right. We could play the what if game, right? Like, what if that opening was really the entrance to the parking garage? Right?
Yeah.
It could be. You don't know. Right.
Very well could. And gosh, now we get less than a minute left until the break. So let's do the break, and then we will come back and talk more about the anomalies on the moon.
Mm-hmm.
This is the Broadcast Team Alpha Show, hosted by Nori Love and Augie Nost. The one show that takes your doubts of the unknown and spins them into reality. Share your thoughts by calling our hotline number at 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Call now. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio. More cutting-edge conversation and exploration of the quantum universe after this. Immerse yourself in an epic journey through time where ancient mysteries unfold within a story of love and betrayal, as well as a battle of good versus evil in The Emissary Book 1. The reader's favorite gold medal award winner for Visionary Fiction 2019, the action and adventure of The Emissary continues in The Emerald Tablet, Book 2. The 2019's Bronze Medal Award winner, The Emissary and The Emerald Emerald Tablet by Tamara Veach and Rennie DeFazio are both available now on Amazon.com. Let your reading adventure begin.
Great.
It's great. I think it's great. I think it's
The all-new KCOR Digital Radio Network.
great.
Make a note of it.
It's great.
This is how we do every day. We be grinding, and if you wanna come and test us,
If you love them enough to turn off your music and pretend like their music is your music,
This is Mommy's jam.
then surely you'll check nhtsa.gov/the right seat to make sure they're in the right car seat.
Let's play it again.
Check today at nhtsa.gov/the right seat. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
If ever a breed was affectionate to a fault, it's the Golden Retriever. They're people dogs, pure and simple. And the Golden Retriever Rescue of Southern Nevada needs your help. If you would like to volunteer, foster, adopt, or donate, go to the Golden Retriever Rescue of Southern Nevada's website at grrsn.org. That's grrsn.org. Or call 598-GOLD. That's 598-GOLD.
Looking for a radio show like no other?
We need something brand new.
Then tune into the KCOR Digital Radio Network, Tuesdays at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, and get ready for The Quantum Shift. A great shift of consciousness is sweeping across the Earth. Are you ready for the dimensional shift?
It is amazing, is it not?
The Quantum Shift. Quantum Shift. Quantum Shift. Hosted by Dr. Sam Muggsy, Kent Dunn, and Gary Parson. Be part of the fifth dimensional reality, where consciousness prevails and the universal law of one is the only true reality. The Quantum Shift. Quantum Shift. Quantum Shift. Quantum Shift. Live Tuesdays, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. Exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
Going live.
Come explore the quantum possibilities. This is Broadcast Team Alpha. Broadcast Team Alpha. To be on the show live, call 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio. Share your thoughts of the show on Twitter at KCOR Radio, #KCOR. Or join the cutting edge conversation live in our chat room at KCORradio.com. Now back to Broadcast Team Alpha with your free thinking hosts, Nori Love and Augie Nast.
Yay, and we can't forget the chat room. All of our friends having great conversation in there. Hello, Yappy, Daffy. Hey, Wave Rider. Shady D. Was it Shady that got kicked off the guest list for the moon? Maybe. I don't know. Rob is here. Naj is here. Lisa's here. Hi, Linda. Hi, Karen. JC is here. Iowa Girl is here. I'm here is here. Haha is here. A Dollar's Worth is here. Augie Nast is here. The amazing, beautiful, rich, and famous Tina is here. I think I said JC, and I don't know. A Dollar's Worth is here. So there's two places where I can see your names. I just want to make sure. Rockster is here. Did I say Wave Rider? I think so. I think I finally got everybody tonight. Yay. Thanks for being here, everybody. And we were having, of course, some jovial conversation while we were waiting to come back. And I say we bring it to the group. What do you guys think?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Oh, yeah, we did have a question, especially when we come back on the structures and the things that we see up there. There were somebody in the chat room, and I think it was Yappy Daffy. He says, are there pyramids on the moon?
Mm-hmm. The answer is yes. There are constructions up there that are shaped as pyramids. They were photographed on the moon by NASA's Lunar Orbiter probes during the 1960s. And it's thought that those pyramids on the moon are connected to Earth in some way. So, this stems from the idea that there was once an ancient city on the moon, and it was thought to have been destroyed during a war. But some of the ruins are still up there, and there have been a number of artifacts that they found shaped like pyramids. So
yeah, I got another thought for you guys out there listening. Since there is pyramids on the moon, the thing about it is that you don't build pyramids in spacesuits.
Exactly.
There is
that's
air
such a good
up
point.
there.
That's such a good point.
Yeah, we have been lied to again. There is air up there, and that's why somewhere on one of my websites I got pictures of green vegetation up there at the bottom of some of the craters.
Right. I talk about some of the contactees. I mentioned them before, who swear that they traveled there and they saw vegetation, and they said there is an atmosphere. One of them was saying that there is an atmosphere closer to some of the mountains. I thought that interesting. So yeah, there's definitely stuff going on there we've been kept from.
We got to remember also that the head of the CIA under Ronald Reagan, he is on the record having said, when we find that everything the American public believes is false, then we know our disinformation program is working. How's them apples?
Yeah. So I thought I'd get into a little bit about some of the structures up there. So guys, like I said before, there's a lot going on, and one of them is the appearance and disappearance of what is now just called the bridge, but it's very famous. So what was believed to have been an artificial bridge on the moon was discovered on July 29th, 1953 by an American astronomer named John O'Neill. He had been studying this area of the moon. The area is called the Sea of Crisis. And he noticed that something was there that wasn't there previously. It was what he called a bridge. He said it was 12 miles long and that it connected two mountain peaks. And he was shocked. He was kind of mocked at that time by his peers and said, "Oh, you're crazy. What you were seeing was there. You just missed it." And so other astronomers came in. In fact, a very famous British astronomer named Hugh Percy Wilkins was called in, and he examined the area and he concurred that this was not there before. He had been studying it. And so, long story short, after a few years, this thing disappeared. And of course, the theory is that it had been created by extraterrestrials and that it was possibly dismantled when they found out that we got wind of it and we were watching them. And that's the idea, that maybe they took it down because of us, but not necessarily, of course.
It could make sense if they are there to observe us in obscurity, and then we discovered them. They could make sense. They took it down.
One of my favorite stories is about a structure that I named the boxed structure. This thing was massive. It was rectangular shaped. It was the color of the moon's surface. It looked kind of like it was even made of the same material from the description I've heard. So Apollo 17, the last mission to the moon, they had their little their little dune buggy by then, the lunar rover. And they were traveling around up there, and they came across this structure. Now, when the astronauts went up, we watched from here. We watched from Earth. There was a live audience. There was a feed to the Earth, so we could see what they were seeing. And at that time, Walter Cronkite was the journalist on board with this. So he was watching, and he says, when it came up on the screen, he says, "That looks like a man-made object." Mm-hmm. And they cut the feed. Cut the feed.
Of course.
And so then 20 minutes later, they came back and they said they had given Mr. Cronkite a story that said the lunar rover's camera accidentally took a picture of itself. And that's what he saw.
Darn, I hate when that happens. Oh my goodness. Pants on fire, right?
Right.
Who's telling fibs? Wait a minute.
They think we are so stupid.
Yeah, well, I'm sure some people bought it, because how would they really ever believe that there were structures on the moon? Really, people just were not there, in their thinking.
Well, especially, if you grew up, during the magic of it all, the first person to walk on the moon. We were raised with a bunch of hype. You can't, and now we're finding out that none of that is really true, or allegedly, right?
Right. And also, it's interesting. I get a lot of, sometimes I get a little bit of flack when I talk about the Apollo missions, because there are, people who don't believe that we ever went to the moon. And, but I do, I believe it. And not only did, the Apollo 11, the first mission, go up, but there were 12 men who walked on the moon. And people haven't gotten past, Apollo 11, but there were, Apollo missions all the way up to Apollo 17. Mm-hmm. I think that in the end, people may have lost interest. I don't know. And maybe they have forgotten. But I want to say that all of the Apollo missions either had a UFO following them, or they saw strange lights on the way to the moon and other things when they got to the moon. They knew something was going on up there. In fact, one of them, I think it was the Apollo 17 mission, the astronauts were working, and the something sort of flew by. Was it Apollo 17 or 16? Something kind of flew by and almost whacked them close enough to. Let me see if I can. Oh yeah, so it was Apollo 16, and it. Apollo 16. One of the astronauts had seen something streak across the horizon. But on one of these missions, someone was almost, forgive me, it's Apollo 15. I wrote, on one account, it states that astronauts David Scott and James Irwin, while working on the surface of the moon, were nearly struck by a mysterious object that streaked across the lunar sky. It was unclear what the object was or where it came from. Now, can you imagine that being the case?
So it wasn't the side view mirror of a tractor trailer, right?
My goodness.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is fascinating. Augie and I did do that documentary-ish of pictures of things on the moon, and we saw figures of what looked like human beings, standing and leaning against, a rock. And we saw that opening.
Right. Those were fascinating pictures. I love your video that you did there.
Thanks. It was fun.
Yeah, it was very, very good. I think that when people see that, they're going to, really sit up and take notice. I did write about a figure in my book. The figure is officially called Colossus, and he was, I think, the first picture there that comes up of a tall alien or humanoid looking person, very tall and very thin. So in 2014, a figure nearly 150 feet tall was spotted in a NASA photograph on Google Moon. The photograph is believed to have been taken by Apollo 15. The image went viral when posted to the internet. Some believe it to be an extraterrestrial walking on the lunar surface. The figure resembles the Greek Colossus of Rhodos. It was therefore dubbed Colossus.
Huh.
Yeah, so some
Wow.
question whether it might be an ancient ruin or a statue or a monument, but others speculate that it is an extraterrestrial walking across the moon. Yeah.
How tall did you say that was?
They estimated it to be 150 feet tall.
Wow.
Well, and Rob in the chat room said there's actually an Apollo 18 mission that was kept very, very hush hush. Interesting.
Yeah, I've heard about some clandestine, some secret missions up there, and I don't have a lot on an Apollo 18 mission though. Let's see.
Really interesting.
Well, there is some evidence to it from testimonies and stuff, but it's hard to prove things like that. But when it comes to NASA, I think absolutely anything could be possible.
Yeah, well, under Apollo 18 through Apollo 20, in my book, I said conspiracy theorists believe that there are secrets about the moon that have been kept from the general public. And that these Apollo through 20 were supposed to go, but they were canceled. But it's been speculated that there are reasons that the program was canceled beyond what the public has been told. That's what I wrote. So yeah. And then of course there was that Apollo 20 hoax. That was very, very interesting. I don't know if you're familiar, how familiar you are with that. Yeah, with the sorry, Nori.
No, I'm not familiar with it.
You're not familiar. Yeah. So yeah, there was a man who came forward via social media a few years ago, and he said, actually it was 2007, and he said he was an astronaut that had been sent on a secret mission to the moon to look at what seemed to be an ancient spaceship. And he was paired with a Russian astronaut, and that they actually went up, and he posted all of these videos on YouTube of it. And I tell you, I've seen those videos, and they look amazingly authentic. For they went into this mothership, and when you look at like the astronauts, what they were wearing and all of the, it just looked old. It would have been such an elaborate hoax to have put these videos together and created all of that for a hoax, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But then later, I believe it was a French artist who came forward and said, no, I was a part of that hoax and I created all of that. The pictures, I'm a painter, I do this, and I did it. But then when you looked at his art and you compared it to what was in those videos, honestly, they didn't actually look just alike. Really? So that's a huge mystery. But I wanted to talk a little bit about the lights that are being seen up and around the moon. There are all flashing lights. There are different colored lights that appear and disappear. There are spots of lights that have been seen moving across the moon. There are lights of different colors in the craters that appear and disappear. Where are all those lights coming from? They're not meteorites hitting. These are things that appear and then disappear and move. Some are higher, some are low. Very, very strange.
Mm-hmm. What do you make of that? Anything?
Who, me? Or Augie? I'm sorry. Well, I have to tell you, I am in favor of someone being up there. And I think those lights are just a part of whatever they have, going on over
like
there for what?
a big disco ball.
Right.
Now there's a visual.
Well, the Colossus dancing around up there.
Yeah.
So, well, there was a gentleman by the name of Ingo Swann who was a remote viewer. Now, the interesting thing about Mr. Swann is that he was asked by a secret agency to use his remote viewing skills to look at the moon. The idea is that this agency thought there was something up there. So they get him. Mr. Swann does his thing. He remote views the moon and he sees humanoids up there. And he said that they were working. There were factories. It looked like they were building a laser. And this is in his book, Penetration. And the reason I give some credence to what Swann said is because he was also the man who found the rings around Jupiter with his remote viewing. Before we ever knew Jupiter had the rings, he already had said they exist. He had already done his thing with the remote viewing. So here he goes with the moon, and this is what he sees. He sees someone working up there. Mm-hmm. And so could the lights be from them?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh my goodness. I say we just get in the ship and go and just, reveal everything that's going on up there. Let's just go and be done with all this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, there are people that say they've been there, so, we don't know, but it sounds interesting listening to it because a lot of the stuff they're talking about is things that in science is outside of their knowledge, but it still matches.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right. So they talk about things that they supposedly are not supposed to know about. But it matches in science. So there is, there we go again, there's more evidence for the moon not being there than it actually is. Mm-hmm. And it's too big and too close and go too fast. It creates too much of a centrifugal force around the Earth. So it shouldn't be there. It should be in a different orbit. Unless it was hollow, then it would make perfect sense for it to be there. So there is something inside. I am totally convinced.
Well, they say that is the absolute only thing that matches, with the moon, is that the fact that it is hollow. And yeah, that's the only thing that makes sense. And the fact that it may have been brought here, Mm-hmm. So another thought that I find interesting is when we're talking about beings maybe on the moon is the moon a foreign country? Is the moon a planetoid? Is the moon someone else's? We on Earth consider the moon ours, all right? But what if it is actually does have someone living there and they don't want us there? We've heard the stories of the astronauts being warned off the moon. Whether or not that story is true, we don't know for sure. But what if it actually does belong to someone else? Because there's a lot of things going on up there that we can't explain. One of the theories is that the moon is a kind of a station for other beings that are passing through. Now, of course, we've all heard that we're too far away from everything for beings to be able to travel from planets to here, blah blah blah. But there are things called we're looking at black holes. We're looking at portals. We hear that there may be portals. We don't know where all these UFOs are coming from here. That could be a place that they stop over for whatever reason and continue on their way. But I also want to say that we did not get very far in outer space before we bumped into something. Because if one of these stories is true, just one of there being movement and lights and structures, and I believe, of course, they are true. We've seen the pictures. then that means there is something else going on. That means there's someone else out there. And I, for one, I find that comforting to know that we're not alone.
Absolutely. I think it's crazy to think we're not alone. It used to be crazy to think that we were alone. Wait. It was crazy to think that we weren't alone. Now I think it's crazy to think we're not.
And yeah. And are they, Nori? Are they watching us from the moon? I was on a show once, and the host said every time he looked at the moon his whole life, he felt that it was a spaceship and that we were being watched. Mm-hmm. That's another theory that humanity is being monitored with the progress. Mm-hmm. There has been some talk about extraterrestrials actually visiting the governments of Earth when we created the atomic bomb, and they were saying that we're not going to let you destroy all the life here with that. And so, could there be someone monitoring us from there? Like I said, all of the Apollo missions were followed or had some incidents. It's not enough time to go into them, but there's a lot of incidents that went on with those missions as if someone were watching and knew they were going to be out there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna have to ask Alchimedes. Alchimedes is a being that came through during one of our masterminds. And Augie, I thought somebody asked Alchimedes something about the moon recently. Do you remember?
Yeah, but gosh, we only got a minute left of the show.
So okay, yeah.
Constance,
we'll leave that hanging. Yep.
Where they can find your books and how they can get a hold of you. I looked at that book, and boy, oh boy, the Encyclopedia of Moon Mysteries is a must-read. So tell us where they can get it.
So you can get it on Amazon, although I hear that they're running low on copies. Hopefully they'll get more in soon, but give it a shot. Also, Adventures Unlimited Press. Adventures Unlimited Press is my publisher. They have them. You can also Google it. If you Google the Encyclopedia of Moon Mysteries, it pops up everywhere. You can also contact me via my website, Constance V. Briggs. I also have a Facebook page, Constance Victoria page, Constance Victoria Briggs, and I have a Moon Mysteries page. You can reach me there.
Okay.
Cool. We have to have you back. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It's been fun. You guys are so nice.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody in the chat room. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Broadcast Team Alpha.
Broadcast Team Alpha.
Hosted by Nori Love and Augie Nost. Every Tuesday night at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. The balance of power is shifting to a new paradigm. Will you be ready? For more information on Broadcast Team Alpha, as well as the hosts, Nori Love and Augie Nost, please visit their website at broadcastteamalpha.com. Until next week, remember to keep those minds open while always exploring the endless quantum possibilities.
Broadcast Team Alpha. Over and out.
This is KCOR Las Vegas, home of the Digital Radio Network, broadcasting from a shack just south of Area 51.
Wait, that doesn't exist.
This is the